So, Jim, how's your week going so far?
Fantastic. That's killer lighting, man. Look at the lighting.
Really? Okay. So, we said unprofessional, right? And unproduced. But I do have. I don't know if for the listeners later on the podcast, you won't see it, but for the viewers, I'll give you the. Close your eyes. Gonna blind you by the light.
Nice, man.
So, this is actually we bought this for, as I mentioned last time, for Marina's health coaching podcast. So
it wasn't
I
trying to make
figured,
you younger.
no, what's making me younger is my T-shirt today. I'm basically don't hate, meditate, and that will keep you living a bit longer,
I
I
like it,
think.
man.
And you have a beautiful view every time it changes. This is lovely. I see your C19 sign behind you.
I got it all ready. I got it teed up for our guest. She's gonna definitely step over the line.
I actually kind of hope so. We need some violators. But before we dive in, as usual, if you remember last time, I said we actually had a critic that nothing was said in 3 minutes.
Right.
We actually had Dow from Healthy Capital. I'm not sure if you met him. It's an investment firm in Netherlands. He commented saying, no, actually, let's extend out the 3 minutes. That's the part that I enjoy. So Dow, shout out to you. The other aspect, just very quick stats reviews. I'm going to go live. And remember last time we're kind of like, okay, the numbers are increasing from like 40 hours viewed to 50, but like it was looking at the last month, not the lifetime of the show, which by the way, we started on April 15th, tax day here in US.
Right.
So over 80 hours people have wasted watching us. Hopefully they learned something.
Well done.
We have had over 1.3 thousand impressions with almost approaching unique viewers approaching 500 almost. So there's people listening to us.
I think we're touching people. We're touching people.
We're touching them. We're touching them. And then I don't know how are things. Just curious on your side, like lockdown
the week
very quickly. The week.
Yeah. Do I still got you, please? I think we're like, this is interesting. So I just came back to the office this week. So in Ireland, we've opened up offices. My company, as you know, Health Beacon, we have a physical product, so we had to keep shipping it right through the whole plague. So we had a light team there the whole time, and then we've had our first team in there. And some people, anyone with young kids, dying to get out of the house. Anyone living with their parents, maybe in their, they've kind of consolidated, generally looking to get out of the house. And I think a lot of, like my kids are a little bit older, so it was pretty traumatic to step outside and go to the office and commute 12 minutes up the road to a fairly empty office. So feeling good. I'm dying to hear what's happening in New Jersey.
So luckily we're in New Jersey. Honestly, aside from this office and getting out once in a while, man cave here, actually, not the office. Haven't seen much more than that. At least we're not in the Ozarks, where there was apparently a crazy ass party going on, everybody on top of each other. I kind of feel bad for that hospital system there. So people are just being, I personally think, not cautious enough, but that's
I think
everybody's prerogative.
The big news in the States this week is our kind of mentor here, Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan show, selling his podcast to Spotify for $100 million. So if we kind of line up our stats next to Joe Rogan, what are we?
Actually, that'd be curious. We got a media empire brewing here, Jim. I think we're at a fractional headway here, and in my understanding, Spotify is getting kind of highly verticalized. So maybe we carry the health vertical.
I've been told that we're a little concerned. It's kind of a flight to quality. It might be.
Speaking of great quality of people, so before we let her in, maybe I'll do like a quick intro. So it's going to be Francesca Wuttke. I think I pronounced it right. I actually never said her full name. But so she is the chief digital officer at Almirall. I think she's been quite a long time in the career in the pharmaceutical industry. I think prior to that was on the investor side. Prior to that, actually at Almirall, and prior to that, Novartis. So I think she'll bring a fresh perspective into all of this, being kind of the other two sides of it. And I'm just gonna admit her in.
Bringing her coming from Spain.
Spain.
Francesca, are we connecting with you?
Hi.
Hey.
How are you guys?
Good. We're waiting for the video. So.
Oh, sorry. There I am. Hi.
Are you still in the office?
No, I'm home. This is my living room.
That's your living room.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Welcome.
Looks like a.
Oh, okay.
The top of it kind of looked like you were hanging a ping pong table on the wall. But...
no. How are you guys?
Good. No, we were
Fantastic.
to chat with you. So you're in the home. You get the kitty.
Well, I've been in the office. I came home midday today.
Okay. Preparing
good.
For the big.
So you guys actually reopened in Barcelona.
Yeah, last week. Not everyone, but we did.
Okay. So yeah, so we kind of have. So have you heard of this podcast, The Shot of Digital Health Therapy?
I have.
Okay. What's the take?
You guys have been keeping me laughing on my way into work.
Nice.
Oh, so you're one of the 17 downloaders and podcasts now?
I am. I got you on Spotify.
Excellent. We actually had a quick argument before you dive in, Jim. Not an argument. I actually don't think I've ever pronounced your last name fully. So I was kind of struggling when I was introducing you prior to your arriving.
Apparently years after I had already been married, I found out I was pronouncing it incorrectly. So you're not alone. And it was my name. So what I was told is what key would you use to open your garage?
Okay.
But the real pronunciation is Wuttke.
Wuttke. Okay.
I think I was close, but once you re-listen to it, and I hope I got your bio right. If not, again, fake news.
But,
I
hope you invented some interesting things for me.
Yeah. Okay. So the first check-in here is the Spanish update. We had an Italian update last week. We had Manhattan. We had California from Lisa. We had Manhattan from Kristen. We had Roberto from Italy. Who else do we have on here?
Matthew and Jess, and actually most, but we'll maybe get into that.
We talked to Robert from the Edge. Robert from the Edge in Chicago. We brought him back.
So far, actually, all Americans aside from Roberto. But anyway, check in.
Well, we rock.
Okay, so what's happening in Spain?
It's a bit of a mess. So we're still under a state of alarm, but each province can kind of decide for themselves when they move to the various phases from phase 0 to phase 2.
Okay.
So we on Saturday just moved from phase 0 to phase 1. And so far, no one I've spoken to has any idea what that means.
Okay. Right. So it's kind of a generally moving through phases. But
it's Spain, so people take any sort of laws as kind of loose guidelines. So.
Right. Got it. You saw the joke that was passed around the internet, the kind of the Corona coaster. Did you see that one this week?
No.
The Corona coaster. It's like, at one practicing yoga, living in your bubble, and then you delve into the depths of depression and dying to get out of it, looking for human contact. So we're all on the Corona coaster,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Jim, you got to hold it up for yourself twice. So you know the rules, right, Francesca?
No.
You're not supposed to say some of these words.
You can't use the C word.
Oh, well, I try not to use the C word as much as I can.
You can't use the C word or the P word.
And
generally good instructions in general.
I think somebody did comment a while back on Twitter that it is a shot of digital health therapy. I just feel bad for myself because it's only 2 p.m. here. For you guys to actually have a shot every time somebody says it, kind of no problem. It's already the evening, but
Oh, see, I haven't brought props with me. I don't have any shots.
Yeah,
all right,
no,
then that's just the hold up. But
I think if I started drinking at, this is 7 o'clock.
No, I've started drinking. I just don't have shots with me. Just to be clear.
Right. It's just kind of yeah. I think if I started drinking at 7, I'd be kind of quickly thrown out of the house.
So not counting Matthew Holt, who I think is considering himself an American, but he's a Brit, and with his dry humor, we actually, and Roberto, who is obviously Italian, we've had all these Americans on, and of course, if we think about kind of digital health, startup health, rock health, health 2.0, a lot of the tracking started in America. In US, and we're still kind of lots of question marks on the investment side. How do you guys, because I don't know the years, it's been almost 9 years for me and the fam living normally on the European side of the pond. How long you guys have been now?
We've been just over 10.
10, and Jim, actually?
Yeah, I came over to, what are we in now? I'm like almost 15 years in Dublin. We came with 2004, 2005. We in now. Yeah. So. Well, okay. So I think the question we wanted to dig into. So one, where obviously we're trying to spin the podcast up into kind of a Joe Rogan style exit. There's a $100 million exit on the. I don't know if did you see the news on that? Joe Rogan sold his podcast to Spotify from YouTube for $100 million.
Oh well, this is next.
Right,
we're almost there. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Almost there.
Like he has 4 million or 9 million subscribers, so we are 8,999,000.
We can't even do the math right, Jim.
Okay.
So anyways, this is the thing we want to hit on, like a bunch of stuff like digital health wise, but like so one of the topics was globalization. So we all have in common that we're Americans that built our career kind of in digital health, largely in digital health. You do an investment, and then really, I guess. Actually,
I was late to the game, but yeah.
To the what?
I was late to the game, but yeah, you guys have a lot more years.
We built a career in digital health as Americans, or as Americans with international influences in Europe, and so would you? I guess the first question: would you move today? Like, if you were living in the U.S., would you step up and move today?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Best decision we ever made.
But talk about digital health and globalization. What do you think? What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I mean, I think in Europe for digital health, there's a little bit more of an opportunity. It's a bit still in some aspects uncharted waters in terms of how patients are interacting with health-enabled solutions and what the regulations are. I think what's really exciting for me right now is what is changing in Germany, because I think that change is pretty significant in terms of the changing regulation, the DTX regulation, how things are starting to get reimbursed, and a regulatory path for digital solutions, which is been really exciting. So I think that's great. I think the consumerization is different here than in the US, and that has an impact. So the way we look at protecting data is very, very protective in Europe because of GDPR, and that's a bit of a hindrance. So I think there's some good, there's some bad. I think from an investment perspective, the valuations that we see in Europe are much more right-sized, and they're much more appropriate versus those in the US. So I think that's a big difference. There's also a huge funding chasm, which is a separate issue, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I just spoke to somebody, sorry, Jim, and stealth startup on actually the East Coast with pre-revenue. The team is barely formed. They have a lead, and even during this time, 15 million valuation. And I'm like, yeah. Actually, great team. I won't argue that. Interesting market, but I think just the relativity of scale, and maybe just Francesca, just like a quick comment on maybe the question, because you mentioned Germany, right, and the law. My hypothesis is the rest of the European countries are now kind of watching like a
Yeah.
hawk, and seeing what actually transpires. So I don't know if
As is the
you had
U.S.,
any.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, and I think this is a specific opportunity where Europe might be on the vanguard or the cutting edge before the U.S. And that's really interesting because what I've seen is a lot of activity to try to kind of try to catch that tail in Germany. And so even for the few companies we have in our accelerator, they're looking to do things in Germany now because the opportunity is pretty right.
Right.
So I think it'll take a couple of years to figure out what that path looks like, and there'll be a lot of failures for sure. What I hope is that the failures don't kind of
Discourage.
Yeah, and set the wrong kinds of precedents.
But what about the localization? Just building back on the localization. So like right now, I mean, do we lose a year? Do we lose a year where we just can't travel freely, and we can't do implementations, and like I saw with the Digital Care Act, they were talking about at first we're saying, hey, you could use European data, and then it was like you have to use German data unless you can show that the European data is sufficiently similar in terms of the health context. So, I mean, do we lose a year now moving around, or what do you think?
I think it depends. I think the things that you expect to grow are growing. Virtual trials, teledermatology, telemedicine, to some extent DTX. Yeah. Because it's in some ways easier to get a DTX through than it is a pharmaceutical, because you may or may not have to do as much, blood testing or ancillary testing. So I think the things that we would expect to move forward and progress more quickly are, and we're also seeing that in terms of funding rounds over the past month. There's been a lot of funding in telemedicine, as you would expect. Yeah. And the companies that I've spoken to in that space, their per patient visits have increased 500-600%. I mean, unbelievable. Sure. And they're now quickly expanding into different countries.
Right.
Have you had, just out of curiosity, or somebody like in Spain, kind of who's picking up who's driving a lot of this telemedicine stuff in Spain? I'm just curious, actually.
Yeah, in Spain, a lot of it's being driven by the private health insurers and by the big hospital systems. Pardon me. So that's good and bad, because they may or may not do a great job of it, and they may do it for kind of triage, cost cutting, which might not be the right approach. I think the issue is there's a huge gap in being able to deliver medicine under I won't say that word, under these circumstances. So
she did good.
So I heard just a little while ago that the increase in amputations has skyrocketed because people aren't getting care for diabetic morbidities, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. There's been a rise in strokes and heart attacks because people are just afraid to go into the hospital under the circumstances. So I think for the very acute, serious care, that needs to still find a way to be carved out. But for the less serious acute care, we also need to provide solutions for patients. I read something that even things like childhood vaccinations aren't being done because parents are so freaked out that they won't take their kids to their peds. So, and that causes other problems. So I think that the health impacts are really far reaching and will continue to be really far reaching for some time. So to the extent we can offer, even if it's just for initial triage, and then to kind of shunt patients to the right places, or even give the patients or caregivers comfort around seeking care when they need to, I think that's really important.
But you always seem pretty calm and collected. Have you been freaked out at all?
Excuse me. In the early days I was. I have to say, we as a company were trying to devise ways to keep our nearly 2,000 employees safe, and I took that on as a huge burden, and that was really scary because we needed to make decisions
to keep our employees safe, to make sure that they didn't get sick, to make sure their loved ones didn't get sick, and that was a big sort of psychological burden that took up a lot of space in my brain for a while.
Yeah, and
I before you joined in, I said, don't hate, meditate.
Yeah. There was a lot of meditating going on, and still.
Yes. Do you believe in from a digital health, like the meditation apps, the music?
I love Headspace, and we've been using Headspace as a family. Gosh, I think for 6 years or so. So I have 3 boys. When they were little, we would just play it in the hallway, and that's how they would go to sleep. So I love it.
So one of the things Eugene and I were talking about when we were saying, okay, what will we chat with about? We're saying is,
hey, Jim, hold on a second. We're supposed to be unproduced, man. You're letting everybody in on our 10-second discussion on on what we're going to talk about prior to this thing.
Based on my reputation of not preparing for everything, it's not a shocker. It's not a shocker. But no, was okay. Like, I know you for your, your extreme snowshoeing.
Wow.
Attributes.
Most people do.
Yeah, and you're heading to events.
I'm very nervous what you're going to say, Jim.
Events and your snow angels and your so we've been at digital healthcare events, and when some of the team went to go skiing, we didn't go skiing. We went to extreme snowshoeing, and then we did with the team of people, we did extreme snowshoeing anyway. I'll leave it at that. And so there's a lot of like, the crowd we're with, it's kind of a close crowd of people that attend these digital health conferences. That's how, Eugene and I have met, and we went. It's a lot of fun, right? Like, we're kind of evangelizing the whole concept of digital health. But now, like the world needs digital health, right? So you and I were knowing, is it time for the suits? Is the fun over? Like, what happens now? Like, is it like, now it's like, we're like the dog who got the car, like all of a sudden the world needs digital health, not just about what you're going to do, it's implementation.
I don't even own suits anymore, so I can't even yeah.
Is the fun over?
In some ways, I kind of hope so. Like, I kind of hope that the suits get it and stop wearing suits, and then start wearing more, don't hate, meditate t-shirts. So I think
a photo bomb of this is Emanuela.
Hi. Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Hi, I'm Francesca.
Hi.
Oh, look, we're really emulating the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is kind of.
Hello, Eugene.
I was just asking Francesca that this is wife Emanuela, better half. Marina.
Clearly.
I didn't remind her. I told Marina we're taping, but I have no control over her whatsoever.
She's an Italian, but a naturalized American. So a lot of times I have to, if there's any ever anti-American rhetoric, I have to threaten.
Yes, to remind me.
I could tell her I can make a citizen arrest and take away her passport.
Good. Yeah.
But no, so she thinks that I go on these digital health events just to have fun, largely. So we're asking, like, is the fun over for digital health? Like, now the world needs digital health.
I think we'll continue to be having fun, but we'll see what everyone else does.
Oh, really? I think there's a lot of work to do, though.
There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah, you guys are going to be busy.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of sleep going on.
Yeah.
So before Marina got on the circuit with me, right, with your coach stuff, she was kind of saying the same thing. Like, all I see you is doing selfies, and you're at this event and that event. And then I think after the first one that she went with me, I want to say actually Webbit in Sofia. Yeah. But anyway, she's like, wow, this is actually a lot of hard work. There's like a lot of intense discussions at the bar. It's not like just all, fun and games. Like, you guys actually are talking about meaningful shit. I'm saying this on purpose, just for you, Joe.
Exactly.
I'm going to say sometimes.
But I want to ask this. So this is to the kind of the intense working mom. So Francesca's with you. She's like, she volunteers for every PTA and every event, and she's moved her whole family to Spain. Emmy moved her whole family up to Dublin. So right now, have you done health appointments online for your kids or family?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, what would you do?
Yeah.
So
We did one
Video.
video appointment, and it was a lot easier than going to see the doctor in
Yeah.
Minneapolis, which is not exactly around the corner. So yeah, it was great actually. It was very thorough, very professional,
Yeah.
and flexible in terms of time. So I think it
Yeah.
worked. I mean, it doesn't work all the time. I think sometimes you do need to go to an office and see the doctor in person, but definitely worked this time. Yeah.
have you done
That's
that?
great.
Have you done it? Have you moved all online, digital, everything?
No, I told the boys that hospitals were closed and just not to get hurt. So far it's worked. So we did have to go to the hospital, to the emergency room. Gosh, I think it was a week or two right before the quarantine started, because my son had a horrible infected finger. And there were lots of kids coughing in the emergency room, waiting room. And I imagine a lot of them probably had COVID and we didn't realize it at the time. So.
Oh yeah.
Because we saw you right before this all broke down, like you did the event.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, and it was all happening right there.
Barcelona. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
What about masks or no masks?
Now we have to wear masks outside in Spain. So.
Yeah. And are you?
Oh, you have a fancy one.
Yeah.
Well, you know my family. You know Marina. This is like the Louis Vuitton of the masks, I guess. I don't know. It's just arrived yesterday.
Very Pulp Fiction.
Yeah,
It makes you look super scary.
Well, we got some, unfortunately, travel coming up, so have to really mask up
Oh,
here.
right. Yeah.
I think it's pro masks as well. I think it's in Ireland it's not compulsory or mandatory, but in Italy it is, and I think it's helping significantly. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Though.
It is.
The smile away. I was walking with the mask, and a little girl was looking at me, and I didn't realize I had my mask, and I smiled, and she like looked really scared, and then I was like, oh, because she's not seeing my smile, she was really worried, and I don't know what was going on, but obviously her mind was very concerned by the mask. Yeah.
Poor thing. I have big cheeks, so when I smile, my eyes close, so people can tell I'm smiling.
Yeah, I always wonder if they can smile. I don't
smile. The eyes.
I generally don't smile that much, so I don't kind of.
No, you're very serious.
But I think I guess the positive silver lining is like nobody's expecting us to be in suits inside or outside. I mean, like I changed the T-shirt today for the show, so it's
Yeah. Like I've worn a new shirt every show now. I'm kind of like vain about it.
I actually remember we were talking, I think I don't remember which episode about JPM, right? And I found my tweet from a couple of years ago where I was sitting in Union Square and saying like, aren't we talking about kind of digital health and innovation? No offense. I mean, I like wearing my nice suits once in a while too, but it's like all I saw is the suits, and like a little bit to this kind of fun discussion. Yes, there's lots of funding that have gone in, right? But also serious players, right? Like now everybody is using telemedicine, right? This become kind of the norm for just kind of sprung forward. And I'm just kind of curious, Francesca, what your thoughts are, because I mean, obviously you guys at Amaral have the digital garden. My biggest frustration was always kind of inside pharma. It's all fun and games and lots of PR and but then now the serious shit is happening, right? We have to heal and treat people using these tools, which is awesome.
Or
we've been preaching
get to docs even, because they're either in Spain. A lot of we've focused on medical dermatology. A lot of the docs were brought to the front line. They were doing triage in the ERs. They're not doing dermatology. They're not in their offices. Those that were in private practice were home. A lot of them, unfortunately, were home because they were quarantining because they were affected. And so, it's been really interesting to see the shift that the organization has had. When I started last year, I would say we were on the very, very beginning of our digital journey, but I think the narrative has really changed. So the way the teams interact with my team now is very different. There's a lot less skepticism because they've been forced to become a little bit more comfortable with technology. And that has allowed a different conversation, a different narrative, and things that were, oh, no, we can't do that. Now they're starting to kind of question, and should we do this, and how should we do that? And so it's been a ton of work, but it's been great to see that change.
You have a lot of these young, like in the digital garden, you have a lot of young companies, right? Like there's a lot of early.
Yeah, they're super early. Yeah.
So like what happens? Like I kind of think, you know, what's going to happen to innovation? Like if you don't have, like we had Rob Garber on, he says, okay, what's going to happen investment wise? Well, there's going to be a flight to quality. There's going to be a flight to scale. And then I kind of added to it that it's also going to be a flight to, like, if you're not dealing with C19, if you're not central to the C19, well done, Emanuela. I'm the biggest violator. But if you're not central to that, then you can't get the investment. So what happens to all these baby companies? Not baby companies. That's
well, it's interesting because 3 of the 4 of them have pivoted as a result of the thing. And so they one.
Can you say the names?
Yeah, sure, of course. They'd love it. One is Intrepido, which is a patient recruitment platform. They've switched to provide patient recruitment for clinical trials within that space. I'm trying very hard. And then we have another teledermatology company, Derma2Go. They've seen their reach increase just exponentially. And since this whole thing started, they were able to open up and allow their services in Spain. So, you know, and then we have another company that's kind of focused on AI, but it's using AI via your phone. It's How AI. And so all of them have been able to kind of take advantage not take advantage, that's a horrible way to put it, but to leverage the situation we find ourselves in now.
Relevant and useful, right?
Exactly. And they are relevant and useful in this era. And I think, you know, it's a good way for them too, as a really small company, to show proof of concept, proof of principle, and to be able to then get them to the next step. And that's been resonating with investors as well.
Do you have them chasing all these financial supports that are out there, like as they try to fund and scale? Are they we spend a lot of time looking for all this kind of, you know, non-dilutive capital that now is available.
Yeah, they've been lucky in that they've gotten a lot of that just kind of on their own. I tend to, you know, I may be poo-pooed for this, but I tend to steer them away from serial angel funding, because I don't know, in general, that doesn't always have the most value to their growth. So, you know, but they've been getting real traction with what I would consider really serious venture capital investors.
So I just saw something on LinkedIn from a fund that posted, 10 mistakes entrepreneurs make and how hard it is to raise capital. And I commented on there, it's even harder to raise capital from your customers. And like all of a sudden my comment just blew up on there. Like I forget how many likes on it, because, you know, on one side, it's absolutely difficult to raise capital, especially in this market. But as the pockets tightened, just actually getting the revenues. So with that, actually on the investor, I'm the timekeeper, even though this is like totally not my role. I hate timekeeping, but I am. So on the investment side, so right before Amaral, you were at Merck and doing the investments. Now you're sort of looking at this, I guess, to a certain extent. Say it again, Jim?
We're going to give a shout out to Bill Toronto. The
Bill Toronto, yes. He'll know my little sign. Now kind of inside a pharma company, more operational, driving a lot of change. I know each one has benefit, just kind of gut reactions, thoughts before we close off here.
It's really different, I have to say. I think I'm glad to still be a part of the startup and entrepreneurial community, because I feel like it's just very kind of, I don't know, there's a life there that I really love. So now we're trying to graduate them into venture capital funding, and that's been really fun. But I think from the inside out and trying to really create a change in an organization, I was glad in some ways to start at the very beginning. But that obviously brings with it a whole other set of issues. But, you know, I tend to be drawn to the thornier problems, and this one was thorny. Yeah. And so So it's definitely been fun and fulfilling, and I hope that we're starting to really make an impact and make a change in the company. The team that has, for whatever reason, decided to join us is just absolutely phenomenal. So, you know, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting and the work in the trenches, but you know, we're starting to see some differences, which is great.
Hey, listen, the team follows the leader, right? So you know, when you describe about the team, you probably just described yourself. So
like I always, if any company, that's what I said at the last event, if any pharmaceutical company wants to innovate into digital healthcare, just hire Francesca. That was the model. That was the end. But
that's so nice. Thank you.
But like, okay, so, but critical question, I know the timekeeper is going to stop me, but is what about summer vacation? So like, what are we doing? What summer vacation in Europe? We're going to drive. We hope to drive.
We hope to drive somewhere.
To drive across Europe. Because
we were supposed to go to the U.S. and do like a big
you
U.S.
can't drive
trip.
there.
No, you can't drive there. And in fact, there was a boat was part of it. We can't do that either. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we'll probably just hang out at the beach. At the beach here.
Beaches.
Yeah, but it's funny because I have this headset on. I feel like I'm at a call center, like ready to talk customer service with someone, which is what I've been doing all week, trying to cancel all my trips. Like, yes, Karen, I am the manager. I'm happy to help you.
What about so Eugene? What are you doing?
So we're actually hoping to drive eventually from Berlin to Barcelona. So let's see if we can pull that off towards the end of the summer. But
well, we'll meet at the beach with a big vermouth.
Exactly.
I love it, and then I will wear this, however.
Yeah.
Yeah, wear that and like make it match your bathing suit in
matching speedo and mask combo.
Ooh, that's gonna go on my LinkedIn post of the show. Who knows?
I hope I haven't given you any ideas, Eugene.
You gave myself a bad visual, so of myself. All right, guys. As always, Jim, great to see you. Emmy, thanks for stopping by.
Emmy, thanks for coming by.
Francesca, talk soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.